Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Langston again, your weekly report of senior analyst for Warchant.com. I wanted to kind of go over some stuff with you guys. Obviously, a big weekend for FSU. The Noles throttled Miami 45-3 in Fort Lauderdale. Big win for FSU on a lot of different fronts. I'll cover that a little bit. A lot of it South Florida. For Miami, they had several FSU targets were in attendance for that game. One of the big ones was Ruben Bain, defensive end. I've said, before this game, you need to go out there and really lay a comfortable, win on the table. And FSU laid it out there. They dominated. Ruben acknowledged that. It certainly made a big impression. I think the big impression, though, from the game is going to be felt more so probably in the 2024 class because of kids developing relationships with a lot of these FSU coaches, and also a lot of recruits already have kind of their minds are kind of deciding kind of where they're at as far as in recruiting. But I think guys like Ruben Brain, Demario Brown, a four-star defensive back, certainly will take notice. Although I think that's a tougher pull because of the ties that Damari has to Miami. But I think guys like Edwin Joseph, who wasn't there but certainly visited FSU the week before. I think FSU's sitting in a pretty good spot with Edwin Joseph. I feel the same about Christopher Otto, who's also in South Florida, out there in Key West. So, who I think is probably going to replace Roger Kearney in this class. So it was a dramatic, solid effect as far as FSU goes in South Florida. I've got a lot of calls and developed a lot of intel just off this game alone from South Florida high school coaches, South Florida players that they know exactly where FSU is going. I think FSU got everything done in a dream scenario, what they wanted to in this game. Getting this win signifies kind of where you're going. I know it's not as well as a lot of FSU fans want it to be, as quick as it's happening to happen quicker. But I think the way FSU's built this program up through Norvell is first the relationships, and then now getting to the point where it's product on the field. Kids see that when you watch this FSU team, you don't have to worry, are these guys going to be able to compete with the Clemsons and the Floridas? Like, you see that every week. Even their when their losses, most of them are all one possession losses, and just losses that there were mistakes made in that game that they weren't there yet, but you can see they belong with all these teams. And then when they have teams that they should destroy, like Miami, they went out there and just crushed them. So this is the first time I think you could say FSU just thoroughly dominated one of their rivals, and that's a big deal to kids in South Florida. That's a big deal. So there's a lot of positive movement. I think it'll be more felt in the 2024 class. You'll see a lot of kids, I think, visiting FSU both late in the season, but also even more so when they do these junior days and January, February. So I think it's a significant impact to what they're establishing in the state. Obviously, the Florida game would really take it to another level because then you're doing it against the entire state. It's not just South Florida kids. So I think it's a dramatic effect. I think questions people have about prospects. CJ Baxter is one of the top. I think FSU is doing everything right. Certainly, they've shown the turnaround, but also Texas has shown a nice turnaround. So that's the problem with the recruitment as far as me pushing FSU ahead of them so far. I still lean a little bit more towards Texas, but I think CJ has a lot of thinking to do. I talked to several people that are very into the know as far as his recruitment, people that are close to him, and they say that FSU is still a major threat, but at the same time, they lean a little bit more towards Texas because of what they're doing. He committed there for a reason. It isn't just NIL or just hey, I like their nice uniforms. It's like he saw a fit there and a comfort there. So I think it's more where FSU is going to see him for an in home. They're going to do all that stuff. So we won't know a finalization on that call one way or the other on Baxter until late in the season. And as I mentioned several times, Baxter's an important recruit, but at the same time, he's an extra to this class, especially with them adding Keziah Holmes from Penn State. So it's not like a necessity that you have him, but it's a big addition. If you can certainly pull it off. So I think FSU is still pushing there. For those wondering, yes, they're still extremely active there. So I think they're very involved there. Ruben Bain, I still think that's a close battle with Miami. Auburn's also very much in there, even though they're looking for a new coach. I think he's going to visit Auburn again. I think he will officially visit also FSU as well. So that one's still very much up in the air. I think FSU nailed everything they needed to in that Miami game for Ruben to see that. That's why the game was so important with FSU and Miami, because it was also to show the growth and steps going forward of what FSU's doing, but it's also to show them like this is how far ahead we are of Miami. And kids that came out of that Miami game were probably like, well, I don't really know what Miami is or where they're going, because of there wasn't much to grasp onto. They gave them no hope in that game. They made sure there wasn't any stone unturned. And as far as that game, I thought the one of the best moments was the Deuce Span coaching on the sideline. Didn't rip Deuce, went out there comfortably, talked to Deuce, said he didn't let him go. He had to go to the back and where the equipment was, and Norvell just stayed on him, talking to him, and it was a really good teaching moment, because you got to believe a lot of recruits and their families are watching that like, hey, that's the type of coach I want to play for. Not only that, they're dominating, so they're dominating the game, and he still has a presence to do that as a coach. I think that was a big moment. Certainly, the other big moment was the Jamie Robinson just slam down of Ja'Cory Brown. I think that kind of solidified the night as far as what was going on, and then the ability of Trey Benson running the ball on Saturday night. I think all those things were really big deals. And while it might not look where it's not the floodgates opening, I think this is the start of what we're going to see as far as the transformation of recruiting for FSU in the state of Florida. I think you're going to see a lot more top 5-star, 4-star kids now look at FSU. And then, and in further closing this, I think you're going to see a lot of high level transfers that look at FSU like, you know what, that offense is popping. They're explosive. They're averaging 30 points a game. These guys have done a heck of a job of developing Jordan Travis. These players look better. You look through across the board, all their players are getting developed. So I think recruits are going to look at this when they hit the portal. So I think it's going to be a big season for FSU in the transfer portal. So a lot of positives takeaways from that game. Certainly, they have a big recruiting weekend coming up for FSU when they play Florida. I think you'll see several official visitors. You might see some new names on there that you probably didn't expect. So I think there's a lot of buzz coming out of this game because of more so what FSU did, more so compared to, we know Miami's down. They're not there. They're a long ways away, but it's about solidifying what you're supposed to do in those rivalry type games, and kids are going to take notice of that. And I think we've already seen that throughout the year that recruits look at FSU different. It's no longer like, hey, I wonder if these guys can compete with this team, or does this roster match up where they can win these games. I think they've shown they can win these games. They beat a really good LSU team that's in the top 10 now. I mean, that showed you just where the product and the process is going with FSU. And I think it's going to start resulting in recruiting. Stay tuned to warchant.com. This is Michael Lankin, senior analyst, recruiting analyst for warchant.com. We'll have a lot more. I just posted kind of some commits for Florida and Miami that I would target if I was FSU. So I think there's going to be a lot more stuff coming up. We're going to have some transfer portal features coming up, and as well as some other features on the Miami game. Why this means so much, and then so till then, it's Michael Langston checking off from warchant.com.